This chapter did a lot in terms of me gaining some respect for Wyper and really kind of getting some insight into why he's been so kind of indignant and singularly focused.
One Piece, chapter 293, Bolero.
Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome and action-packed climactic tale of One Piece. Our last chapter saw us with, really it looked like the end of the flashback, or the flashback coming to an end, and really kind of giving us the background and kind of the end game of what happened to, the part of Jaya that got blown up into Skypiea, and how the Shandorans, were pretty much just pushed out, killed, captured, whatever, by the Skypeans and whoever was claiming to be God at that time 400 years ago, as well as what happened to Noland and his shitbag of a king. So that's where things left off, and things pick up. Really, what this was, this whole flashback, this was really it was Wyper's flashback of what he was told when he was younger by the village elder, the head of the village, and what have you, And so before Wyper actually comes out of the flashback, though, it shows him, of course, questioning the elder a little bit more. And we find out, too, which I thought was cool, that years later, after everything happened and whatnot, there was actually a sailor from the North Blue, right, where Noland was from, that made it up to the Sky Islands and was able to go and relay the story of what happened, that even with his last dying breath, being called a liar and everything else right before he was beheaded, he was still, of course, praising and claiming the existence of the great city of Shandora, right? So it was really kind of cool, because that's where the whole, the light of Shandora thing came from, because Kalgara, figured, hey, listen, if we can just get to that bell to ring it even once, that'll allow Noland to know what happened to us, and obviously he didn't know when he was going to come back or anything else. But it really is kind of a very, very cool, it's not kind of, it really is a very cool, touching story, in my opinion. And really, like I said, just definitely the apex so far of this this saga, and really just this series thus far for me anyway. So really, it's kind of cool, because you get to see Wyper, and this also gives me a little more respect for him. I still don't really appreciate his small-minded attitude towards anybody else. You can kind of say, well, I understand where it comes from and everything else. And yes, I do understand some of that now that I did, seeing what they happened to them growing up and everything else, kind of always being pushed out, always being on the run, being persecuted, having to live and be hidden and everything else. So I do understand that. And then, of course, too, no matter who was in the seat of God at that time, right? Whether it was, whether it's Enel or whether it's, Gonfall or anybody else, I do understand his attitude of, like, pretty much just not trusting them at all, because of knowing the story about what happened to their ancestors, and how the God at the time just pretty much just, was, hey, let's kick everybody out and kill anybody who won't move. So it was definitely very cool to see that. I would like to know who that North Blue Sea person was, though, because, I thought it was kind of cool that Gonfall even wound up talking about somebody that years ago that he met that came up from there. I wondered if maybe that was Goldie Roger, and this obviously is probably an unrelated, a separate thing, but it's still kind of cool to know about that. And I believe Sanji's from the North Blue as well, so I don't know if any of it ties in down the road, if I'm looking too much into things, but I'm just trying to go and keep track of all the threads that are out there dangling. So as he comes out of the flashback, Wyper comes out of it, it's because, obviously Isa is calling him there. He's there amongst everybody else that's left. Luffy and Nami are headed, of course. Nami's chasing Luffy. Luffy, of course, is going up to the top of the giant jack with his giant golden ball that he's rolling along. And we also wind up finding out that that's where he thinks the actual bell tower would be, or the bell. And I don't care if it's called a bell tower, a belfry, or a bell, whatever. Who gives a shit? It's a bell. The bottom line is, I don't care about pronunciations, translations, anything else. When it comes to that, the idea is that whatever structure was holding up this giant bell, as they're explaining about how when Skypiea got blown up, when Jaya got blown up into Skypiea and then kind of landed on that giant jack that went right through the center of it. And it amazes me that nobody ever noticed this one all the years that it's been up there, but they're saying that the bell became dislodged and pretty much entangled towards the top of the actual vine. So I don't know if maybe the vine eventually kind of grew over and around it, or how they're going to explain that, because as far as I knew, Enel and his deal was up higher there, with his, whatever. But the point is, he's going up in his airship to get there, and he's destroying everything on his way up, and he's just having a good old time doing it. And it just shows you how power can go to somebody's head, It makes makes you think of things, even like with World War II and with Hitler and everything like that, thinking that, you know, the Germans were the master race and everything else, and all the things that he got people to drink the Kool-Aid, got to drink his Kool-Aid. And I'm not trying to start a history war over, you know, from different nationalities and everything else. I'm just using that as a basis for comparison, because that is somebody who just, it seemed like anyway, from all accounts that I've read historically, that he just enjoyed just the death and the killing of others that he deemed less worthy than him. And it's the same type of mentality, I believe, with this Enel. He believes he's invincible and that he's God, and instead of just taking his arc and going wherever the fuck he's going to go to endless Verth or fairy Verth or whatever everybody's calling it, he wants to go and destroy everything and everybody in the process. For what? You know, just because he can. And that's like I said, that to me, that's like a focal point of this chapter and really, you know, part of this saga. Just because I can, I have the power, I'm going to do it. So he's toying with people as he's got, you know, because he's obviously, you know, making these lightning clouds explode even more and everything like that, and just, you know, just blowing up ships, and winds up taking out the whole secret cloud village of the Shandians, right? And you know, and of course they had just barely escaped, got away in their ships and everything, and you just kind of see that whole dynamic. You also see Wyper go, and for once he actually seems to chill and not go and immediately attack anybody who's not him, you know what I mean, and who's not one of his people. Whether it's that he doesn't have the energy, or whether that's he's finally coming to the realization that there may be others out there that aren't, that he doesn't have to fight everybody. I don't know. I don't know if this is his turning point, but I definitely liked seeing him in this chapter as opposed to previous chapters where he really just kind of pissed me off, and it just incited anger, you know, that welled up within me whenever I saw him before. And mainly it was because of his attitude and the way he acted with things. However, some of it, of course, like I said, I believe now that I have the full story, is a little more justified. So, but I still don't take back anything that I said about him. I do believe that he should have, you know, that you don't always have to be you against the world, bud. So whatever. But anyway, we wind up finding out from that history of it, and from, you know, Robin explaining as well and everything else, that that's where everybody is headed, up towards this, you know, up towards the top of this giant jack, because that's where they're assuming that this bell is. And like I said, it's just all very cool how it's all pulled together with the flashback and everything else, and it all wraps into now, and just the climax of it. It just very, very cool stuff. The chapter ends up with Luffy, you know, going, you know, and he's of course he's determined, man, and he's just like, oh, I'm gonna get you, Enel. So I thought it was cool because he's still got that giant golden ball, and he's just getting up there, and he just wants to take this sumbitch out, you know, because he's got that simple, horse blinders on, that simple genius I like to call, where it's just like, hey, listen, this is what I have to do, and I have to do it now, you know. So very cool stuff, very cool chapter. And my chapter question is, I guess, you know, what are your thoughts on what I was asking about with this North Blue Sea person that made it up to Skypiea some time ago? I don't know if it's ever hinted at again, but what are your thoughts on that? Is there any significance to who that character may be? Maybe it was one of his crewmates that saw, you know, of course, Noland be executed for no reason, that had seen the city, and that maybe he wasn't able to be silenced like everybody else. He was able to get out and decided to try to get back there, and accidentally happened upon Skypiea or heard about the legend of it. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that. So leave it in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching all of you in the next Fun Nation.
So I was thinking today that maybe you should come over and follow me on the Facebook and the Twitter as well.